Hey everyone, I wanted to go over the new and exciting news that we got for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, which is set to release on both the Nintendo Switch and on PC on June 30th. And today we're going to be checking out something interesting, and that is the fact that Capcom decided to showcase a little bit of a guide video breaking down just how the two new statuses are going to be working. Essentially how bleeding is going to be affecting you as a hunter, and how blood blight is actually going to change the way you're going to be able to play, specifically as a rather aggressive hunter, because of the benefits you get the more attacks you actually land. So they posted this in both the North American and in the Japanese Twitter accounts. I'm going to leave a link in the description for that, for both of them. But we're just going to focus on the English one because the Japanese one was pretty much the same thing as the English one. And their post read as follows. Bleeding. You'll take more damage if attacked in this state. Use items such as sushi fish or crouch to counteract. Meanwhile, blood blight. This causes the red health gauge to decrease gradually, but it can be recovered by attacking up to your aggression to heal based on the damage you inflict. And alongside it, they linked up a video as well, which showcases first and foremost a hunter wearing some master rank Nargacuga armor fighting a Seragios as they showcase the bleed effect. Then they showcase another clip of a master rank Mitsuzune armor wearing hunter fighting a Malzeno as they showcase the blood blight debuff. And I certainly want to delve a little bit deeper, since not only are there a couple of things worth picking out of this specific set of clips, but also the implications specifically when it comes to blood blight and what it could actually mean for the skill armors that are going to be tied specifically to the Malzeno armor set. Because I think blood blight is going to be an interesting mechanic that I think they certainly want to take advantage of. So when it comes to Seragios bleeding, and we know that Shogun Senator also has bleeding, and there's going to be presumably a couple of more monsters that might end up getting introduced either as a new monster or returning monsters that are going to have bleed effects one way or another. They wouldn't necessarily just bring it back for just two monsters right now. The bleed seems to be working in the same way that it did before. You would typically just get hit, take a small amount of damage or a great amount of damage depending on your defense. Then you have your big chunk of red gauge as your green gauge begins to kind of deplete automatically. And the best way to go about it is to eat some jerky, which used to be the way that you could get rid of it before. Now you're going to be doing sushi fish or the gourmet fish as well. I believe that's an option as well for you to be able to go ahead and get rid of the bleed effect. And if you don't necessarily happen to have any with you, you should certainly be able to crouch just for a couple of seconds, maybe 2 or 3. It seems rather fast, and then that bleed effect should go away, but you are not going to regain the health automatically. Eating the fish or the gourmet fish should certainly get your health back. So it's going to be one of those, whichever way you want to handle it, it'll work for you as well. Now that one's pretty straightforward. Again, Seragios bleed hasn't necessarily changed, and other monsters bleed is going to be pretty much this similar way as it was in the past. Now the implications really change when it comes to blood blight, because this mechanic is new to the game. We haven't necessarily seen something like this before, except when it comes to the virus. And of course, Gore Magala's virus, Frenzied virus, is very similar to this specific blood blight, with the clear difference that blood blight actually gives you health back and Frenzy Virus did not. So that is the only caveat there, but other than that, it's pretty similar. So what blood blight is actually doing is that it causes your red gauge to continually decrease gradually. So your green gauge is not implicated anymore, your red gauge will. So that's the one that for your max health, if you will. That one is certainly going to be dripping down, and all you pretty much have to do is to regain it, is to get hits off from Malzeno. Now we know that Malzeno, for right now, at the very least on day one, or for the information that we have right now, it's going to be the only monster that's going to be able to do blood blight from what we know of. Obviously, implications are that maybe other monsters are going to be able to do it as well. Maybe Luna Garen or something along those lines. Presumably, we don't necessarily know. Now, the reason why this debuff or abnormal status effect, or element if you will, is so interesting is because, of course, we already have skills in the game that whenever you are losing health or your health is below a certain threshold, you are gaining damage, you are gaining a certain amount of percentage of damage. And it's going to be interesting to see, since we are going to see skills being merged in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. It's going to be interesting to see if they decide to give us a skill or two that kind of blend that same idea together. Whenever you're losing health, whenever you have a status debuff, and you gain a certain amount of power or a certain ability, if you will, it will be interesting to see if they merge those skills together into one specific skill. This is what we're expecting with Master Rank armors. Pretty much every single Master Rank armor should have one skill that kind of blend these two lesser skills into one. That is kind of like the effect that they do for Master Rank armors in the past. That's what they have been doing in a while. And blending that for one specific skill is going to be interesting to see. On top of the fact that presumably Malzeno's armor could have some sort of permanent blood blight activated if you are actually wearing the armor. Think of it like Mizuzune's armor, where you essentially get the bubbles. So it could certainly be one of those benefits that it'll stack on top of each other. You have active blood blight at all times if you're wearing Malzeno's armor, and you can certainly get that skill where, you know, you're getting boosted damage or maybe even critical hits based off of the fact that you have a status debuff active at all times, which would be the blood blight, and of course you're losing health on top of that and regaining it back as you're hitting the monsters again. So it would be a double whammy, if you will. Not only a really good skill combination, but also blood blight where you're recuperating health while losing it at the same time. It's an interesting mechanic that they're doing this with, and Malzeno being again the flagship of Sunbreak, is going to be interesting to see how they choose to combine that. We haven't necessarily seen the skills for any of the Master Rank armors yet. We have seen some things here when it comes to a couple of changes for the weapons that they are doing, and some of the statuses and elements, how they're actually going to be working, but we haven't necessarily seen the actual armor skills. So those are really going to be paying big dividends essentially when we are trying to hunt and certainly try to max out those meta sets where everyone is just going to be chasing those same statistics. Remember that when Crimson Glow Valstrax's armor was introduced in Rise, it pretty much changed the meta altogether. A lot of people just kind of shifted to that armor, and it just kind of became the de facto one, or certain pieces of that armor became the de facto ones in the meta. So this one is certainly, I think, going to play a big role into what it is they're going to try to do, on top of some of the elder Master Rank armors as well that we should certainly be expecting to see very soon. But that's about all the information that I wanted to go over today. Not only did we get a couple of new gameplay clips showcasing us both the bleed and the blood blight, but I also think it's going to be interesting to see and keep your eyes peeled on what kind of skills these armor sets are going to have and how beneficial you can actually become if you are using blood blight with boosted damage, boosted parameters, as you have the status active at all times potentially. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.